Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the way Rachel Reeves looks to have completely wrong-footed the Tories and, more importantly, Tory media with a series of real surprises with her budget. Just when we thought we knew what a lot of the policies were going to be, Reeves blew away some of the key criticisms that the right-wing press have been making ahead of this budget. They were trying to show that Labour were not keeping their promise on taxes for working people and screwing over small businesses. But what Reeves announced this afternoon was not at all what was being reported on. Looks like she's managed to play the media. Shame Labour can't do that more often. But first, for daily political commentary, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So, in the final couple of weeks ahead of this budget, there were lots of policies that we were being told about, and some of them, we knew were speculative. Some of them, they were being reported on as if they were fact, as if they'd been tipped the wing. We knew they were going to happen. It's definitely happening. And some of them were in there. And of course, there are always some surprises. And there were a lot of really positive ones. So many that it actually makes you think that Labour's decision to run with this narrative over summer of, oh yeah, tough choices, harsh budget, yeah, you're not going to like it. It looks even more questionable now because this budget can absolutely be sold as a positive. It led to this unnecessary hit in the polls. What's the reason? But although I want to go over a few of the more notable comments from the budget statement as well, I thought I'd begin by focusing in on the ones which wrong-footed the Tories and their client media. What the Tories really wanted to show is Labour breaking manifesto promises. This is partly why there's been so much debate about what Labour meant regarding their definition of working people. But there were two effective tax rises coming that really could be argued to be taxes on working people. You could try and argue the case, but, dodgy. And no matter how Labour chose to define them either. So the first was fiscal drag, right? Leaving tax band levels so that with inflation, some people are moving up into the higher tax brackets or another tax bracket, even if their income was not actually increasing in real terms. Now, the Tories had already frozen those tax brackets in place for some years. So that's the Tories doing, not Labour's. But there was talk of Reeves extending the freeze for longer than even Jeremy Hunt had. Now, although that wouldn't strictly break the manifesto promise because Labour only promised not to increase the rate of any of the income tax bands, not where they were, it would still mean working people, even as Labour define it, paying effectively a higher rate of tax. But Reeves announced that the bands would actually increase in line with inflation once the freeze, which had already been put in place by Hunt, ended. Now, that technically means the freeze is still going to be there for, say, next year and the year after. That's the legacy from the Conservatives. Neither they nor their monkeys in the media will really be able to complain about that, not credibly, because all Reeves is doing is not reversing something Jeremy Hunt did. Second one, however, and this for me was the more serious one, was fuel duty. Now, fuel duty is a dying tax. As we move towards electric cars, we're really not going to be raising very much from it. And it's worth a lot of money. It's not easily dismissed. We're going to have to replace it with something. But Labour aren't ready to talk about that yet. So it would make sense to increase fuel duty. However, I did say some time ago, where I genuinely wasn't sure how committed Labour were to the manifesto was on that. See, lots of working people from very low to high paid work drive to work, right? Fuel duty is a tax, undeniably, and it's a tax paid by working people. If you increase it, and although there wasn't a specific commitment to keep the fuel duty freeze, would be an easy line of attack, especially as increasing fuel duty by the expected 7p a litre, that would have been noticed by people on low incomes. But Reeves announced today, and she made a big song and dance about the fact that, this would be too punishing for people on low incomes. She said, no, freezing it. Which was a surprise, because that was one of the things that we were seeing reported as if it were fact. We were going to see 7p increases in fuel duty. No. Runs completely counter to what the media have been reporting as we approach the budget, and so has sunk a lot of their arguments. But there was more. See, they were reporting that Reeves would be increasing national insurance contributions for employers. That, in fact, would be her single biggest tax-raising measure, and indeed, exactly what she did announce. It's going to generate a lot of money. How much? Enough to fill in that Tories' £22 billion black hole and then some. However, the media were clutching their pearls and saying, but what about the small businesses? Will nobody think about the small businesses? But Reeves announced that the smallest employers would not actually pay the employers' contributions at all. In fact, she was actually going to boost the number of small employers who would be exempt. Because there are already some. You know, so if you're small enough as an employer, you as a business, you already don't pay employers' national insurance contributions. She's boosting that. So the net effect of this budget is all those really small businesses that employ like a couple of people maybe, who were thinking, oh no, we're going to get hit. No, they're not. And actually there's some businesses who right now under the Tory regime were paying those national insurance contributions who will not be as a result of this budget. Reeves suggested that, you know, if you want to know what level it's at, an employer employing the equivalent of, I think it was 4 full-time minimum wage staff, she said, would pay no contributions at all. Completely sunk another Tory attack line. Like, where do they go from here? They may have to go back to moaning about VAT on private schools. I shall be looking towards their articles tomorrow with great interest. But there were some other interesting features in the budget as well, beyond just cutting the Tories from below the knees. And I don't just mean the fact that the OBR are confirming that, yes, their analysis of Jeremy Hunt's budget in March, had they known about the things which they now know about, would not have been the same thing. So Rachel Reeves was able to say, Jeremy Hunt's budget was a complete farce, right? A complete fiddle. But there were some other interesting bits. So first of all, Reeves announced that she was going to be getting the OBR to publish 10-year growth plans rather than just 5-year growth plans. Now, the reason for this is so that Reeves can make long-term investment plans. Only having 5-year forecasts means there's a lot of political resistance within the Treasury to okaying long-term investments. This wasn't a complete surprise as such. We knew that Reeves had a problem with the way the Treasury put too much emphasis on short-term returns and that long-term projects suffered. And the reason's simple. So all projects obviously need upfront investment. You have to pay for them before anything gets built, right? That's a cost. That's bad. Costs are bad, right? But good projects generate a return which makes the cost worthwhile and you actually get a bit extra on top. Well, that's good. But if the return doesn't exceed the cost within 5 years and all you use are 5-year forecasts, then a project that will deliver a decent return after 8 years looks bad because you're only using a 5-year forecast and it will be rejected as not worth it. So this change should mean we get more long-term investment decisions being made. Now, obviously, politics is still politics. There will always need to be investments that give a short-term return so that the government stands a chance of winning the next election. But at least it shouldn't be short-termism reigning supreme now. The announcement that got the biggest cheer, if we look about the ones that MPs reacted most to, the one that got the biggest cheer seemed to be the cut to the duty on draft beer. Anyone would think MPs are just a bunch of drunks, wouldn't they? In reality, the cheer may have been because Labour MPs know it's a bit of a vote winner. Having the Daily Mail reporting that the price of a pint is going down, as they have done this afternoon, that'll do their re-election chances no harm at all. I suppose the statement that got the biggest laugh was over air duty. Sunak appeared to put his phone down when she started talking about that. Quick as a flash, Reeves, his ears pricked up at that one. A lot of jokes connected to whether when the Tory leadership contest's over, Rishi Sunak will be flying straight to California. In reality, I suspect he's not going to do it straight away. But she announced that there will be a 50% increase in air duty specifically for private planes. Then made another joke at Sunak's expense. Another little surprise, it was only a little surprise, was the abolition of non-dom status. Now you may think, well, Phil, this was in the manifesto. It was a promise. It was a key promise. In fact, it was on their 6 first steps. So they could hardly go back on it. It's like, no, true. But there was talk that the OBR might estimate that because of the number of non-doms who may therefore leave the UK, that it could actually cost more money than it raises. In other words, it could be a net negative in terms of like balancing the books. That is a problem for a chancellor trying to squeeze a budget for all it's worth without increasing the burden for those on the lowest incomes. Because there was a suggestion that Reeves was, before the election, estimating it could raise £1.5 billion, but the OBR might say, no, actually, it's going to cost you £500 million. But either the OBR did not make this assessment after all, or Reeves didn't care because she still announced the policy today. Now, she didn't have to. She could have. All she had to do was announce the move before the next election, and manifesto promise kept. I don't think it was indicated that it was going to be in the first budget, but nonetheless it is. It's there. It's done, out the way. Another promise concerned abolishing the different minimum wage bands by age. Now, Reeves is phasing this one in. I did wonder about that yesterday. I suppose it could potentially create a huge jolt to the system if not. But the minimum wage was confirmed to be going up to £12.21 at the top end, but a larger increase for younger workers. So younger workers will go up to £10. That is a significantly larger increase than for those at the upper band, with a statement to confirm that, yes, we are going to be phasing it out altogether over the next few years, so that there will be, come the next election, only one minimum wage level for like all workers. Another surprise to me was the £3 billion, or £2.9 billion if you want to be pedantic, boost to defence spending. Now, of course, people will say, well, you know, defence is incredibly important right now. Europe is actually being invaded, and not enough people in the UK potentially understand what's at stake here. The government will, obviously, and so they will understand the need for more spending. But politically, would you get... I mean, especially if Trump wins and America pulls out, right? Politically, though, can you get away with it? So it was a surprising announcement. £2.9 billion does represent an increase of over 5%. And that is significantly above the level of inflation. So that is definitely a significant real terms boost to the defence budget. And another move the Tory press will find really hard to criticise. Not impossible, of course. I mean, remember, they have already been happily blaming Labour for things that happened when the Tories were in government. I don't just mean at the start of it, when you could blame Labour potentially. I mean, even at the end, after 14 years, things were happening that was somehow Labour's fault. But tomorrow's articles, I think, will be a little bit tougher for them now. But there we are anyway. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can join for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.